So, Liz, thank you for being here today and thank you for your time. I am so excited to have you on this interview. I wanted to say on this show, but it's not a show yet. Maybe one day it will be. I found Liz on Instagram. Her content is really interesting. She works with small businesses to help them with their branding. I just found her account very interesting. And the next thing we know, we're talking. She has a great podcast as well. And then I found out she's a mom, and I was like, oh, I need to have her on my newsletter. So here we are. So thank you for being here. And if you could just start off a little bit with just telling us about your background and where you come from and where you live and your kids. That would be
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Cardiff in Wales in the UK, and then I went away for a long time. So went and studied, worked, lived in London for about 10 years, and then had my first child and came back to Cardiff. And I am a graphic designer. So I went to art college and I did graphic design. And I've sort of I think this is quite unusual now, but still working in graphic design. But I have had sort of like a few twists and turns on the journey in terms of who I work for. So I started off in a little agency, went in-house at big university, and then while I was there, started getting requests for like freelance work. And interestingly, working for myself had never been a big goal or wasn't really something that I was interested in. But I started to take on these side projects and actually really enjoyed it, got a taste for working for myself. And then I had kids and realized that I didn't want to go back to working for someone else. And so thankfully, I had started building my own business before having kids. So basically, very slowly at the start, because I was like having, taking maternity leave and like juggling it with childcare and everything. But now the kids are a bit older. I've like really gone all in on my own business. And I think I'd really struggle to go back to work for someone else now. I've got a taste for it.
how old are your kids?
5 and 7.
I've heard that's the magic age combination. Tell me
Yeah,
it's true.
it's pretty good. Yeah, it is pretty good. I feel like we're out of the sort of toddler phase. They're a lot more independent. They get on quite well. I mean, there's definitely like ups and downs still. It's a good phase and I'm really enjoying it. And this year was sort of, or this academic year was a big year for us because my youngest started school full time. So this was the first time where I was like, okay, I actually have a really good chunk of time to work, which has been really nice.
Because my kids are 4 and 6. So I'm like,
Okay. One
behind.
year behind. Yeah.
I'm just like, please tell me it gets better.
I
So
think it does. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's the second child syndrome. I think my daughter is 6.5 now. My son is 4.5, and it's the dynamic. It's my 4.5-year-old that's slightly cheeky. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Same here. Yeah. I think when the younger one gets a little bit older, then it starts to get easy.
okay, fingers crossed. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the reason I started following you, which was a very cool thing you did. You posted this post on Instagram about embracing rejection.
hmm
And that's really what got me to follow you, because I was at the beginning, I'm still at the beginning of my own business journey. And of course, when you're in a new business, you often don't do things because you're like, oh, they're going to say no, or we're going to be rejected. But what I loved about that post, and it's really what got me to follow you, was you're like, embrace it. And you had some challenge of like getting X number of rejections. Can you talk to us a little bit about where that came from and rejection therapy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it came from a rejection. So basically, I invited someone who was much more high profile than I would usually ever ask to be on my podcast. And he said no because I didn't have enough downloads per episode. He said it very nicely. He was like that he was looking to get, reach a bigger audience, but to get in touch with him, when I had more downloads, whatever. And what was interesting to me was how I felt. It wasn't a horrible rejection. It wasn't public. It's not like anybody else knew about it, but I still had like quite strong feelings about it. I could catch myself going into, oh, well, that didn't feel good. I'm not going to ask anyone of that level again. I'm gonna like protect myself. I don't want to feel like this again. And I sort of started to think if that's how I was reacting just from a fairly minor rejection for my podcast, what was I missing out on because I wasn't even asking for it because of this fear of being rejected. So I had seen some other people do this and A friend of mine who's an illustrator called Katie Chappell did it a few years previously to me, which was a rejection challenge. So I basically set myself the challenge to get 100 rejections in a year. No, I started off aiming it for within 6 months, which it turns out was completely never going to happen. And I failed the challenge because I didn't get to either of those things. As in, I didn't get to 100, yeah, I didn't get to 100 rejections in 6 months. But what was really interesting to me was the minute that I made it a challenge and I gamified it, it became something that was fun for me. And I'd basically created a win-win situation. And it just gave me this real boldness and this confidence. And so I was like going out and just asking for what I wanted. And yeah, surprisingly, got way more yeses than I expected. So I think I'm about 50% yeses, 50% no's. And yeah, just got much better at handling the rejection, much better at moving on quicker. So I still feel the negative emotion, when it happens, like the disappointment, but I don't dwell on it. I just move on to the next thing. And I think that's what's been really amazing. Interestingly, I've been thinking about this recently. I still catch myself, like almost like go retreating a bit and thinking, oh no, I can't do that. And so then every now and then I have to give myself a bit of a pep talk and be like, right, you've stopped going for the bigger things because you've convinced yourself they're too big. So you need to like do that again. Yeah. So recently I pitched to like someone really famous to be on my podcast, and a woman, I don't know if you've come across Elizabeth Day. She has a very well-known podcast in the UK. I haven't heard back from her. So we'll see what happens with that. But I was like, oh well, there's no point in asking her. She's gonna say no. And then I was like, no, come on, get with the spirit of the challenge and keep going. So yeah, I think it's gonna be like a lifelong change for me now, where I just keep, yeah, asking for the things that I want and seeing what happens.
It's so great because when you think about it, like your logical brain thinks about it, you're like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no.
Yeah. And
What?
it's fine.
I'm what?
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, you're right. I mean, we do struggle with this, and it is a mindset shift. And I feel like I feel like I should do the challenge. Maybe I should do the
Yeah,
challenge.
set yourself your own challenge. I would say it doesn't have to be 100 because that is too hard to get to. Like I'm going to keep going until I get there, but it's going to take me a long time. But yeah, like even if it was like 20 things or 30 things. Yeah, I mean loads of people have messaged me afterwards, which has been really nice, saying, "Oh, I saw you talking about your challenge and I decided to do my own one." And then they tell me all these amazing things that have happened. And I did it for purely selfish reasons. Like I didn't really do it thinking that other people would do it as well. But what an amazing like byproduct of it to have people messaging you and be like, oh, you inspired me. And now I'm doing, I'm speaking at this amazing event, or I'm doing XYZ. And I was like, that is so cool.
So cool. It's so cool. So what are the kind of things that you've been kind of asking for? Like, is it mainly to do with your business? Is it all like podcast related, or it could be anything?
All business related. So I'm not doing it in like, there's like quite a lot of people on TikTok who do this just in their personal lives. So they'll like, I don't know, go into a coffee shop and ask for a free coffee or what. I'm not doing that sort of thing. It was all business related. A lot of it was related to my podcast, just because that was like a real focus for me at that time. So a lot of it was, like pitching for guests, asking people onto the podcast. I wanted to get podcast sponsors. So that was a big part of it as well. But other things in business as well, like I want to do more public speaking. So like pitching to speak at events, pitching for like doing workshops, work. I mean, I thankfully at the moment have like quite a steady stream of clients. So I didn't really feel like I needed to pitch so much in that area. But there's like a few clients that I would love to work with. So I'm going to like cold pitch to them. So yeah, it was a mix really, all sorts of things.
So talk to us a little bit about how after you had kids, you'd already started your side business, right? Kind of before you had kids.
Yeah, I had
Kids. And I guess, what was the point when you decided that, okay, I'm definitely not going back?
So where I worked when I had my first kid had a really amazing maternity package. It was really good. And so I was able to take a whole year off, and if I went, so I don't, it works differently in different countries, but in the UK, quite often, if you go back, you have to go back after maternity leave for at least 3 months to get the maternity pay. But with my job, I didn't have to go back. So I basically went into it thinking, look, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I have a kid. So I'm just going to see. I'm just going to see what happens, see if I, maybe by the end of the maternity leave, I really want to go back to my job, or maybe I don't. And it got to the end of the maternity leave and I didn't want to go back to my job, mainly because at the time I was living in London and I had quite a long commute. And so I would like be dropping my kid off at 8 a.m. in the morning and not seeing him until probably like 6 p.m. in the evening. And that just wasn't what, I mean, no judgment to anyone who does that, but like it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So yeah, I just handed in my notice and never went back to that job. And we eventually ended up moving out of London, partly so that we could have a bit more flexibility with that, like so that our cost of living was a bit lower. So, we were less reliant on having like two full incomes. So that took a bit of the pressure off. I mean, there's like so many privileges here because, obviously having two incomes, yeah, is makes life a lot easier. And so then as my sort of like son got a bit older, I started building my business up and taking on more clients. Then I had another kid. So then, but what was really nice about it was that I could sort of like scale back and expand depending on like what phase I was in. And then after my second maternity leave, at this point, I actually kind of had two businesses. One where I was doing like like what my business is now. So like service-based stuff where I was creating branding for other businesses. And then I also had a stationery shop where I was creating my own designs and selling them. And at that point, I decided that I needed to pick one and fully go for it. Because otherwise, I mean, I know loads of people that run two really successful businesses, but for me, with like how much time I had to work and all different factors, I just felt like I needed to pick one and go all in. So I picked the service-based business and thankfully made the right decision because I've been loving it. And so for the last sort of 4 years, so since I finished my second maternity leave, I've been going, yeah, really going for it with that. And interestingly, I don't know if other people will relate to this. I wasn't super ambitious in my career before I had kids. I was just sort of like plodding along. I was quite happy, but I wasn't really pushing. But since having kids, I've become so ambitious. And so I feel like now I'm like really pushing myself a lot more. And maybe it's because it's my own thing. It's my own business. It's much easier to be ambitious for yourself than ambitious for like a big company, I think. So that's kind of where I'm at with it now.
That was actually my next question. Like, how did motherhood change the way you perceive your work, And you say that. And I think, yeah, it could be a mix of the fact that it's your own business now, that
Mm,
you're really wanting to kind of thrive with it.
mm.
And also, like, maybe you're also setting a great example for your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly feel that obviously since I've quit my job, and I'm just starting my own business. I'm in like, oh my God, is this going to work? What have I done? We've suddenly lost one income. But, for me, it was also like, it's now or never.
Mm,
And I really want to set an example to my kids that you can do what you want to do, but you just have to try. And it's interesting you say that you've become more ambitious because most of the moms I speak to say the opposite. Not that they're not ambitious, they still want career fulfillment and they still want to work doing something that they love and enjoy, but they do want the flexibility and they prioritize other things. And I think working for yourself allows for that. And
yeah.
I suppose it also allows you to be as ambitious as you want to be when you want to be.
I think that's it. I think it's that being like before I sort of described it as being able to expand and retract as needed with my work. And while I am very ambitious, I'm not to the point that like I have very sort of clear ideas in my head of how I want my lifestyle to be. So what I love about working for myself is that I don't have to ask anyone's permission to go to my kids' like school play or to pick them up from school. Like I don't have to work to anybody else's hours. I can like fit it in around my life. And I recently had an opportunity where I was asked to apply for a job at a company and I considered it, there's like definite perks, like the security and increased pay and all these sorts of different things. But I decided not to because ultimately, like for me, what feels successful is that flexibility that I have. And I guess I feel ambitious in the sense of making that work, like making a business that allows me to live that lifestyle rather than ambitious to be like the most, I don't know, famous branding designer or whatever. It's more, I guess, ambition in terms of making my business work. And I think you're right. Like, I think it's a mix of, yeah, a mix of things. I think one of the things I would say is and I know a lot of mums say this as well, like I really lost a lot of confidence after I became a mum. And I think it took me years. I almost feel like I'm only just feel like I'm coming out of that now. So it took me years to build that back up again. And probably it did make like the growth of my business slower because I was just dealing with so much, at starting a business, or it wasn't like that I was starting from scratch, but really going for it with my business for off the back of like having two kids. Yeah, I feel like it took a time for me to build that confidence back up, and then maybe that made the sort of process of growing it a little bit slower.
But as you said, I think everyone defines success differently. And it
Mm.
definitely, I think for a mom, there is such a huge level of success if you can build a business around your life
Mm.
that works for you. And the reward is in being able to keep it sustainable. So you never have to think about going back to a 9 to 5 or
Mm.
worrying about where your next paycheck is coming from, and having the beautiful flexibility and freedom to kind of grow with your kids. And yeah, I mean, this is the reason I left, because I wasn't seeing my kids enough. And
Yeah,
after a point, of course, money is important, but if you're doing it as I wasn't seeing my kids.
yeah.
So it's like, what am I doing? So
And I think the phrase "you can have it all" has been really damaging. I think like you have the potential to have all of the things that you want, but not necessarily at the same time. And I think we just need to be a bit more realistic about that. And ultimately, I think it's working out what you want and then working out what you're willing to sacrifice to make that happen, because you do have to sacrifice something, and for you, for me, for example, what we've sacrificed is the stability of a regular income and, benefits from a company or whatever to be able to spend more time with our kids. And that comes with its own challenges. Yeah, there's no like perfect answer, I don't think. And so everyone has to work out, like what's the most important thing for them. And for some people, it is going to be the security. And again, I feel like I always need to mention, it comes with privileges. Like there is a privilege of being like having two adults who can work. I think if I was a single parent, for example, my decision making would look completely different. And so, yeah, but I think like I just feel very lucky to be in this place where like I didn't go into this career thinking, oh, this will actually work really well with having kids. Like that never crossed my mind. And so to find myself in a place in an industry where you can quite easily create your own business and build it into something, like you said, sustainable, that brings you, a good enough income. Like, yeah, that's been amazing.
yeah, and I think, and like you said, like the fact that there are privileges that we have, that we can do this. And I'm in a similar position, and I feel like because I get to do this, I have to succeed at it,
Mm,
because, like, how can I not, So that's
mm.
become a real driving force for me as well, because a bit like you, like I want to be able to actually build this into something that I can sustain, so that 5 years down the line, I'm not like knocking on corporation's door for a job.
Yeah. And I think that sustainable piece is really important because I think we see so many people building businesses online, and often it looks really different. Like it looks very overnight-ish.
Correct. No,
And
because
it
nobody
looks,
talks about all the stuff that goes behind it.
yeah. And I think actually, I think one of the things that gets talked a lot, for example, is going viral, say on social media. You know, people think you go viral and then that's it, your business is made and you never have to worry about it again. And I've gone viral and that didn't happen. Do you know what I mean? That isn't actually what makes a successful business. And I'd much rather grow my business slow and steady and it be sustainable and I can keep it going for a really long time than have this sort of sudden flash and then, oh, can I sustain that? But I think like you said, that I guess that's how I define my ambition is like I am so determined to make this work and to grow it into something that supports my family. I guess that's what fuels the ambition. And
Yeah.
that's completely impacted by having kids. And I think, like you said, again, like I didn't really go into it. I think it sounds like you did go into it more with this attitude. I didn't really go into it thinking I want to be a good example to my kids. Not that I don't, but that wasn't
I get
necessarily
it. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
motivation. But it's so nice to see how that is happening. And they're like, because I work from home, so actually my husband's self-employed as well, and he works from home, you know, they see us working. We sort of like, you know, take it in turns between us, you know, to go off and work while they're around. And they're interested in what I do. Like one thing that's really cute is they've got really into designing their own logos. So I've been like, you know, showing them bits of what I do and we've like turned it into a fun activity and they like sketch out their ideas and then I, you know, show them how I then make them into a thing on the computer and we got like stickers printed. And I feel like if I was away at office, I wouldn't really have the opportunity to do that with them so much. So yeah, there's lots of great things that have come out of it.
How fun. No, that sounds like real fun. And it's so nice that as your kids are at that age where you can have these conversations and you can kind of make them part of it. My kids are still a bit small and they're still like, why are you not playing with us when you're at home?
Yeah.
I'm still getting like my son is downstairs and I have literally I gave him 3 gummy bears so that he wouldn't come up. But yeah,
Yeah, that's the
fine.
sacrifice, isn't it? You know, like there's sacrifices all round, and like ultimately sometimes, you know, if I've got a bunch of deadlines, like the kids just have to accept that I can't spend all my time for them. And you know, like the flip side of it is it's confusing for them because I'm in the house, so they don't get it. Whereas if I was like out of the office, they would know that I was just like, you know, out at work. So yeah, that's the thing. I just think there's no like perfect scenario and every family is different. And I think it's like amazing if you can find a way that it works well for you and your family that feels like fulfilling and that, you know, ticks most of the boxes, even if
I
it's not all of the boxes.
think what you said was really important, that every decision is a sacrifice in some
Yeah.
way. You decide to do one thing, something else has to go. And I
Mhm.
think the minute you kind of embrace that I've
Yeah.
chosen this, so this is just going to have to go, it's really helpful because in the beginning I struggled a lot with it because I was like, oh, now I
Mhm.
have time freedom. Now I can do all these things, but no, you can't. If you're building a business, you have to be really focused on
Yeah.
business, and that still means you have to sacrifice things. So
Mhm.
I think the earlier you embrace that, the easier it will be for you to find something that works for
And
you.
the clearer you are on your goal and what it is that you're trying to achieve, I think that makes it easier as well because then you're not just sort of like running around doing all of this stuff, not really knowing what's going to happen. You can be a lot more intentional, and I think that makes the sacrifices easier to take because you're like, well, I know what I'm doing this for. You know, this is why I'm doing this.
Where do you get your inspiration?
Oh my goodness. That's such a good question. I think people, honestly, you know, like I am definitely an extrovert. I love being around people. I think talking to people about different topics and what they're working on and what's, you know, yeah, like things I'm thinking about, like bouncing that off other people, I think really inspires me. But then I also find it really helpful to get out of my work bubble and find inspiration like outside of that. So, like for me, going to new places, I find really like inspirational. So it doesn't have to be like you know, I mean, we've got like kids in school and not a huge budget, so it's not often not very like exotic or anything, you know, but even just going for a walk in a different area of my city or taking a different route, like I just find, yeah, exploring new places very like inspirational and stimulating. I've recently been to quite a lot of conferences, so like networking, listening to talks. I found that that's really been good for me as well. Again, it's like a change of scenery, different people, different ideas spark things for me.
What's your biggest productivity hack?
Oh, that's a good question. I am I find it really hard to like concentrate for long periods of time. And I'm quite like distracted by what's going on. So I find breaking things down into really small chunks. If I've got this big project that I know that I need to do, I find it overwhelming and I'll just put it off. So breaking things down into small chunks and using like a timer, guess it's a bit like I don't do it as Pomodoro, but I guess it's that kind of technique, you know, where I'm like, right, I'll give myself 10, 15 minutes and I need to get this thing done. And then I can like tick it off the list. I mean, honestly, a to-do list is the most motivating thing for me. Very simple. It's just on my phone. I make one for each day and I try and get as many things done on it as possible. But yeah, I think a timer, giving myself a time limit, because a lot of things, but most things I will expand to the time that I have
Happens in-
available. So yeah, limiting my time is
Yeah.
definitely helpful. And I think having kids has definitely helped with that because I used to have to work in, you know, small chunks when one of them napped or something. So I've got quite good at like quickly getting into like, right, brain mode, what am I going to get done in this time?
And then what's your parenting mantra?
Ooh, my parenting mantra. Well, it depends. It depends what phase I'm in. I
On
think I think when they were little, I know like this too shall pass is quite like a mantra for a lot of parents. You know, like knowing that it wasn't going to, when things felt hard, knowing that it wasn't going to be like this forever, like that definitely helped me appreciate it and enjoy it more. Or just sort of see it for what it is. But when I mean, it's so hard because when you're in the thick of that, though, like the sleep deprivation and everything, like you just can't imagine ever coming out the other side of it. But yeah, okay, no, this is what I think my mantra is. One of the things I'm not very good at and I want to be better at is like just being really present in the now. And so I think my mantra is to just, you know, like really just accept the phase that I'm in of parenting, enjoy it as much as I can, and be as present as possible with my kids.
Great. I think we all need to hear that. I'm in that dark valley at the moment where I'm like, when is this gonna pass?
Yeah.
I think if you do take a step back and just appreciate it for what it is, and you know, they say the days are long, but the years are short. We will miss all these things. You will
Yeah.
miss the dramas and you'll miss
Yeah. Yeah.
want another cuddle. Mommy, I just want another story. And mommy, I just want to play with you.
Mm.
I know we'll miss that. What would be your advice to new moms looking to start working again or to even start something of their own?
I think my advice would be to be really kind with yourself. I think as mums we're just like so hard on ourselves and we're so hard on ourselves like if we just don't get it and do it straight away. And I think actually with everything, you know, like it's a learning process, it's a journey. And I think I was so frustrated at myself at the beginning that I wasn't further along, that I was behind, you know, like I gave myself a really hard time, that I wasn't earning enough, all of these kind of things. And I just wish I'd been kinder with myself and just, again, with this too shall pass, like just accepted that this was like part of the journey and that in a couple of years, like things would look very different. Yeah. So I think, you know, I think we beat ourselves up about so many things, but be gentle with yourself as you start like a new thing. And also like acknowledge that it's really normal for you to not feel yourself, to have lost confidence, to feel a bit lost. And yeah, see it as the beginning of a journey of kind of like rediscovering what you want to do and who you want to be. And that's normal and okay.
What do you have a favorite tool that makes your life easier?
A favorite tool.
Tool. like an app or something that just makes your life easier?
Do you know what? I'm no. Well, I would say the Notes app on my phone, being able to just like jot things down,
Oh, that's fun.
having it all there in my pocket is definitely the thing that helps me the most. I feel like there's so many apps that I could download, but yeah, no, I haven't. I feel like I haven't found the right tool for me.
What are your thoughts on AI and how it's affecting us and our work and kids? Do you have any?
I
I know
have
it's a
very
very big topic,
big
but
topic. I have very mixed feelings. As a creative, I find, I guess, generative AI makes me uncomfortable a bit, and I worry about there's so many like ethical implications, and there's lots of things to worry about. I mean, I try not to worry about it too much, but that's in the back of my mind. From a mum perspective, I think there's lots of really exciting things going on. And actually, I bought this thing the other day. It's so amazing. So a friend of mine is like incredible when it comes to AI, and she builds these tools that like genuinely really help. So I get excited about AI when it's helping me with the jobs that I don't want to do. When it's doing the jobs that I do want to do, like being creative and designing, then I'm like, no, I'm not interested. But anyway, she created this tool where you can take a picture of your fridge, you upload it to ChatGPT, it then gives you a list of everything it can see in your fridge, and it gives you recipes and the methods and everything. Like cooking is not something that comes naturally to me. Is like I enjoy it in the sense of I want to give the people that I love nice food, but the actual process of cooking I don't enjoy. And so I was like, this is amazing. I also just struggle with the having to make decisions about what to eat. So so that's when AI gets me really excited, because I'm like, okay, this is genuinely making my life easier and it's saving me a bunch of time. Yeah. So I think very mixed feelings about it. It depends what I want AI to do the jobs that I don't want to do, but I don't want it to do the
don't
jobs
us
that I
all,
do
we
want
all
to
do
do.
for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So just three last quick fire questions, rapid fire questions. A parenting book or some parenting advice that was a game changer for you.
Oh, I tell you the one that I really loved. It was Philippa Perry, The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read.
That was the
Um,
title of the book.
yeah, and your children will be glad that you did. I found that really helpful. Lots of food for thought. It was a sort of one where I went away and I was like, okay, this makes so much sense. So that is the sort of parenting book I'd recommend. I think, to be totally honest, the thing that has helped me most as a parent was getting therapy. So when my first kid was young, I went to therapy for a while, and like I think that I heard someone say this and it sounds awful, but I think it's so true. Like I think having kids is truly really triggering, and it brings up a lot of like undealt with issues for people. And so I think actually going and dealing with those and addressing those has been the best thing that I've done and the most helpful for me.
And I think realizing that that's what's happening and then
Yeah.
seeking help is hard because
Really hard, especially when you're
right.
like sleep deprived and you're just like in the midst of it and everything's foggy and yeah, absolutely.
Um, and the last question is, what's the best thing you've read or watched lately? It could be anything.
Oh, I love like escapist TV, like things that I don't have to think too hard about. So I also, if people are really into a TV show, I like refuse to watch it. So I've just watched Ted Lasso. I've like everyone was like obsessed with it like 3 years ago or something, and I've only just watched it, but that I really, really enjoyed it.
I haven't seen it. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's good. I have a very busy brain, and so I like things where I don't have to think too much. I can just, yeah.
And anything you've read lately that's been really great? Fiction, nonfiction?
From a work perspective, a friend of mine wrote a book called The Best 90 Days Ever, and it's like marketing prompts for every day. So I think that, and what I like about it, again, I have an overstimulated brain and I find it really hard to sit and read through a book cover to cover. It's the sort of one that you can dip in and out of. So yeah, I find that helpful.
It's funny, every time I ask this question, best thing you've read, I'm like, I need to take this question off the list because we're all moms. We're trying to
Yeah,
do
yeah. Who's reading? Yeah, totally.
I think it's the former reader in me who used to read so much when I was younger. I miss that I've kept that there because I still want to know what everyone's reading. Is
Yeah.
a way to kind of feel like I'm still in the reading game. But I should probably take that question.
No, but I think, well, it is a good question. But yeah, I mean, it is true. Like I read a lot less than I did, but I have aspirations to read more because I think like you, I used to read a lot. And I'm like, oh, I need to get back to being that person.
I even joined a book club and I'm
Oh, well
like,
done.
what am I doing? And I
Yeah.
like, and the book club meetings are coming up and I'm like, sorry, maybe December.
Yeah. Give me a year and I'll get back to you with my thoughts on the book.
Anyway, thank you very much, Liz. It's been a real pleasure.